Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. My name's Thomas Williams. It's that time of the week again. We have the usual. We have Intel again this week. Some of it rather heavy. We have the usual news and views in the first hour. The Intel and some interesting op-ed pieces and some things I want to get off my chest. Plus the usual question and answers at the end. So we've got a packed show again, and let's get into some details of the show for those of you who are new. If you want to catch the show live, it's 7:30 every Thursday, and you can catch that on www.spreaker.com/user/8955881, or you can go to the article's website thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. Now we have all the archives of the bigger shows that people can catch up with the show and get the essence of the show on there, and articles on all kinds of other things. If you want to pose comments or questions for the show, send an email to truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com. And we have the Facebook page, Truth, Honour and Integrity, and if you don't like Facebook, you can join the social media alternative at mewe.com, MEWE. Now, if you are struggling to find that site, because I know some have, just send an email to the Truth, Honour and Integrity at Gmail and we'll add you in. We also have the People's Club donation website link. It's all about the foundation at thepeoplesclub.org. Go and see the details for that. I am hoping to do a video of some description, either an audio or a video, detailing what will take place with the foundation, how the vision for it, and how we can all contribute or make proposals or whatever. So look forward to that coming up soon. Right, let's get into some where are we first? Some news and views. I was going to play a song, but then events took place today and I ended up playing Crazy Train, which is kind of the way things are at the moment. But I was going to play a song for Holly Higgs Peterson, one of my admins who sadly lost her father this week. So I feel I should mention that tonight, and I'm sure all the other members will send their sympathies and condolences to Holly. And Dad's now at rest. He has struggled for a long time, and he's now at peace. And that's the best you can say, really. It's always sad, but sometimes there are circumstances when it's better for the individual, and I think he's now in a better place. Right, let's get on with some of the news that's been going on. And the first thing is the financials, which is going to reach a rather it could go through the roof or it could crash land, and we'll have more on that later. But the figures from the Treasury Department on Monday stated that the US recorded a $215 billion budget deficit in February, and that's the sixth, the biggest in 6 years actually, as revenue has declined. Well, fiscal income dropped to $156 billion, which is down 9% from a year earlier, while spending rose 2% to $371 billion. And the deficit for the fiscal year that began in October has now widened to $391 billion compared to $351 billion shortfall for the same period last year. And the the data kind of underscores concerns by some economists that Republican tax cuts enacted this year could increase the US government debt load, which has now surpassed 20 trillion. But Mr. Trump and his team believe that the tax changes are expected to reduce federal revenue by more than $1 trillion over the next decade, while a $300 billion spending deal reached by Congress in February could actually push the deficit higher. Well, that kicking the can down the road arrives again next week. And it will get interesting. There's all kinds of threats going on now, hence the crazy train. So we'll see how that all pans out. Martin Shkreli kind of burst on the scene, a securities savant who worked on Wall Street at 17, and set up his own hedge fund at 23, and then launched a biotech company, Retrofin Inc., after teaching himself biology. Clever guy. But some may remember him as the trader who shorted drug companies after trash talking them. Well, the former pharma executive who he kind of came under fire from everyone, and he didn't. It's his own making. It's all about greed again. And following withering criticism for raising the prices of a life-saving medication by more than 5,000%. Mr. Trump, of course, labelled him a spoiled brat, while the campaign of Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders also called him a poster boy for drug company greed. Hear, hear. Well, Mr. Shkreli, who's now 34, faced his reckoning, or his day of reckoning last week, and he was sentenced to 7 years. That's a message to a whole lot of other people who think they can be service to self and impact the public in that manner. You know, he could have actually got 15 years, so he kind of got off a little bit lighter, but you know, increasing life-saving medication by 5,000%, you know, that to me sickens me, and that will be a point of that will be made in the video or the audio that will go on the People's Club of how we need to be different. Here's another greedy so-and-so, Jeff Bezos. These people, he and his company, need to be slashed and cut up big time going forward. Maybe the People's Club can take them on, because his net worth, which is mostly based on the price of Amazon stock, and Amazon shares have been soaring, which is now up more than 50%, 50%, in just the last 6 months alone. Of course, Bezos started 2018 with a fortune worth near 100 billion, and he quickly added another 10 billion to his net worth within the first 2 weeks, Drake time, of the year. 10 billion profit in 2 weeks. I mean, how is that allowed? Should it be allowed? And by the end of January, Bezos was up 20 billion in 1 month. And this is according to the Bloomberg Billionaire Index. And his net worth just hit 129 billion, which is up 30.1 billion in just 2018 alone. And he's now the world's leader for greed, in my opinion. Obviously, the second one is Bill Gates, is another one whose net worth is 92 billion, and he's only made 128 million only in 2018. So last year he added 35 billion to his fortune, and it's already up 30 billion in the first quarter well, not even out of the first quarter. And it's just, it makes me sick, that level of greed. 10 billion a month profit. Well, basically, he's increasing his wealth by $231,000 per minute. Not per year or per month or per week, per minute. Well, it is said that the average American wage, which I beg to differ, is around $60,000 a year. So he's making what 4 people make in a year per minute. Time for the IRS to step in and take 40 to 90% of that off him, in my opinion. Arnold Schwarzenegger has now decided to step back into publicity, and he's decided in an interview on Sunday that he revealed his plan to sue oil companies. He wouldn't do that when he was a politician, though, would he? That's one way of getting voted out very, very quickly. Anyway, he's drawn a comparison as to how tobacco companies hid details about how harmful their products were for consumers, and he's stating the oil companies knew from 1959 onwards the same thing. They did their own study that there would be global warming happening because of fossil fuels. Well, here's a misnomer. We're not getting global warming, and oil is not fossil fuel. Oops. And on top of it, that it would be risky for people's lives and that it would kill, Mr. Schwarzenegger said. And so we're going after them, and we're going to be in there like an Alabama tick. Because to me, it's absolutely irresponsible to know that your product is killing people and not have a warning label on it like tobacco. Tobacco is not the real issue. It's the chemicals they put in it. I saw an article today about they're talking about the FDA decreasing the nicotine in the tobacco. How about decreasing or eliminating all the chemicals in it? Because natural tobacco by itself is not harmful. It never was. That's why all the ancients smoked it. Now, of course, it's you're like a pariah if you smoke. How quickly people follow the plan. Until, of course, they ban something that they like. Then all hell breaks loose. Well, we didn't get a forecast totally correct, but it certainly was partially correct. We mentioned back in November that the Bitcoin would be pretty much worthless by the end of February. Well, it has been crashing, but I wouldn't say it's worthless currently. But today they lost another 60 billion just today. Wiped off the value of cryptocurrencies, and Google has now just decided to ban adverts on cryptocurrencies. That is a sideshow move. Oh, look, Google are doing good. No. We covered this guy last year, Richard Spencer. This is the deep state sponsored white nationalist. Richard Spencer said he's considering suspending his controversial alternative right speaking tour amid escalating violence at his appearances. Go figure. All pre-planned. Spencer said the left-wing coalition known as Antifa has made attending his speeches too dangerous and not fun by intimidating his supporters and shouting down his lectures. Spencer supports the creation of a society run by white people in the United States. Really? What about the native people that were here before the white people, and what about certain other species that were here before? And routinely attacks diversity as an assault on the white race. Antifa members argue racist voices should be aggressively countered and make no apologies for their actions, except they are also deep state sponsored as well. When they become violent, clashes and pitched battles, they aren't fun, Spencer said. I don't inspire any kind of violence. Really? Ignorance as well as stupid. And until the situations we are up a creek without a paddle. And Spencer's announcement made via Twitter and a lengthy YouTube video this weekend comes just days after violent clashes between his supporters and 500 counter-protesters at Michigan State University. All very Zeke Heil, if you ask me. I don't know how, I don't think he's, like I said, he's deep state sponsored. This is a continuation of trying to create race wars again. So the people all get out of control, and then the rogue elements of the military and certain agencies can then wield out certain rogue military onto the streets. And that person needs to be shut up. And the Antifa people are not what you think either. Same thing. Same people operating for the same paymaster with different opinions. But neither of them believe in what they're saying either. Rex Tillerson. The musical chairs continues. Oh dear. And he comes the latest hiring fire to lose his job this week, and that's the 26th senior official fired in the past year. Political musical chairs indeed. Now Mike Pompeo is set to take over Mr. Tillerson's post, him being a former director of CIA. And in allegedly steps Gina Haspel. One wonders how long she will last if media decide to go after her. I wonder. Haspel joined the CIA back in 1985 and ran a black site CIA prison located in Thailand in 2002. And the site's code name was called Cat's Eye. Go figure for the CIA. And allegedly held suspected Al-Qaeda terrorists who were employed by the same company. But there you go. And in particular, Abdul Rahim al-Nashiri and Abdu Zubaydah, for a time anyway, in the prison. And the Senate Intelligence Committee report on CIA torture specifies that during the detention at that particular site, they were waterboarded and interrogated using no longer authorized methods. There was some declassified CIA cables specified that Zubaydah was waterboarded 83 times in a month and was sleep deprived and kept in a large box. He also had his head slammed against the wall, and he also lost his left eye. And eventually he was deemed by the CIA interrogators to not be in possession of any useful intelligence. And Haspel was directly involved in its controversial interrogation program and had extensive role in torturing detainees. Haspel then went on to play a vital role in the destruction of interrogation videotapes that showed the torture of the detainees, both at the black site she ran and other secret agency locations. The European Centre for Constitutional and Human Rights pressed criminal charges against unidentified CIA operatives under the US Senate Select Committee published its report on torture by US intelligence agencies. And on June the 7th, 2017, they called on the Public Prosecutor General of Germany to issue an arrest warrant against Haspel, interesting, over claims she oversaw the torture of terrorism suspects. I don't think she's going to last too long either. Maybe I'll have a clue why later. Counter-terror police are leading an investigation into the unexplained death of a man in London. Not that one, this is a new one. And he is believed to be Russian businessman Nikolai Glushkov, who claimed political asylum in the UK after being convicted of fraud. The Metropolitan Police said its specialist unit was looking into it as a precaution because of associations that the man is believed to have had. All very open-ended, that statement. But there's no evidence linking this particular guy's death to the incidents in Salisbury last week. I'll have more on that later also. Reports today, because of that particular nerve agent attack, here's how they use the rhetoric, is the Secretary of Defence, Gavin Williamson, announced that thousands of British troops will be vaccinated against anthrax because of what happened with the nerve agent attack. Really. And he was expected to announce the measure today, along with plans for a new chemical weapons defence centre. In his first keynote speech since becoming Secretary of State last year, Mr. Williamson set out the threats facing the UK, his vision for the modernising defence programme, and make the case for investment in armed forces. If we doubted the threat Russia's posed to our citizens, we should pay attention. Now he went on to say, Russia, Russia, Russia. Really? It's like a stuck record, isn't it? I've got a tickly throat tonight, so apologies for the gulping. Where are we next? A new film is being made. This will be interesting. It's probably going to cause a lot of issues, demonstrating for and against it, about Mary Magdalene. And the film sets out to refute the commonly held assumption that she was a prostitute redeemed by Christ, according to the Catholic Church anyway. And the new film, though, flips the script to show Mary in her proper light, as an independent free thinker who bore witness to Jesus' death and resurrection, and who deserves to be considered as an apostle in her own right. And for those that don't know, that particular claim that Mary was a sex worker comes from Pope Gregory I. Go do some research on him, and you get an idea. And he declared her to be a prostitute in the year 591. But the Catholic Church itself cleared Mary's name in 1969, for those that don't remember, and the Pope Francis, formally identified her as the Apostle of the Apostles in 2016. So that should be an interesting film, and a good side note. Wells Fargo, up to fun and games again. Now in front of Congress, I think, today. And the chief executive, Tim Sloan, today defended a 35% gain in his latest compensation package whilst describing comments made last year by US Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, who had called for his removal, which Mr. Sloan says was inappropriate. Now, the third largest US lender has been battling a sales practice scandal that erupted in September of 2016 with the revelations employees had opened potentially millions of phony accounts in customers' names. Really, the whole bank should be shut down. People have really found out what goes on at Wells Fargo. Not that some of the others are much better, but this level of criminality in Wells Fargo seems to go further than most. Remember the Intel portion last year, when it was made clear that the Federal Reserve was defunct. Wells Fargo tried to step in and buy up the debt and take over it. No, that got blocked. So Mr. Sloan, who took over when former CEO John Stumpf, that's a German name, abruptly departed in October of 2016, just a month after all the other, when everything gets revealed, CEO doesn't run it. Why isn't CEO, who was there at the time, answering these questions? You got to ask the question, haven't you? And he said in January that Wells Fargo was not certain it had fully uncovered and fixed all scandal-related issues yet. Really, it takes that long. Internal reviews and regulatory probes have revealed problems in other areas beyond the initial unauthorised accounts, including mortgage lending and also auto insurance. And early this month, Wells Fargo admitted that it was examining its wealth and investment management business for further possible issues. Like the American version of Deutsche Bank. There's another one that's like the Shkreli guy and his greed over the pharmaceutical drugs. Here's another one who's going to pay a price as well. The founder of a startup that had promised to revolutionise blood testing, which has me red flag right from the off, has agreed to settle charges that she raised over $700 million fraudulently. The Security and Exchange Commission said Elizabeth Holmes, who was friends with the Clintons, go figure, and Theranos deceived investors about the firm's technology. It said the company had claimed its products had been used by the US Army, but it added, in truth, Theranos technology was never deployed by the US Department of Defense. Now, Ms. Holmes will lose full control of the firm and will also be fined $500,000. I'm not seeing any mention of jail, but there you go. An SEC official called the fallout an important lesson for Silicon Valley. Well, we need to go through the whole lot of that and drain the swamp there, in my opinion. Innovators who seek to revolutionise and disrupt an industry must tell investors the truth about what their technology can do today, not just what they hope it might do someday. And this was the director of the SEC San Francisco regional office. Theranos was founded back in 2003 when Ms. Holmes was only 19 and sought to develop an innovative blood testing device. So here we are 15 years later and nothing got developed, but collected a nice amount of money for it. The firm said its Edison device could test for conditions such as cancer and cholesterol with only a few drops of blood from a finger prick, rather than taking vials from a vein. And took 15 years to try and solve that. Anyway, back in 2015, Forbes magazine estimated Miss Holmes' wealth at $4.5 billion. Nice little earner that for based on a pack of lies. However, in the same year, reports in the Wall Street Journal suggested the devices were flawed and also inaccurate. And by 2016, Forbes had revised its estimate of Miss Holmes' fortune down to 0. Handed it all back before she got into big trouble. Wonder who paid it back. More's the question. Theranos, Holmes and Balwani claimed that Theranos products were deployed by the US State Department of Defense on the battlefield in Afghanistan and also on medevac helicopters, and that the company would generate more than $100 million in revenue back in 2014. But in truth, Theranos technology was never deployed by the Department of Defense, and it actually generated a little more than $100,000 in revenue from operations for the whole of 2014. She should be getting jailed, in my opinion. Is this the last one? Yeah, this is the last one of the news, and then we're going to go into a musical break and some intel. Students and school staff across the US are commemorating the Florida school shootings with a walkout this week, which was exactly a month after the killings, and they're stopping lessons for 17 minutes in memory of the 17 people allegedly killed at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Pupils at the school, which was targeted by a former student, hugged each other on the football field. The protest organisers accused Congress of failing to tackle gun violence, and the White House revealed a plan this week to deter school shootings, which does not include President Trump's repeated calls to raise the age for buying semi-automatic rifles to 21. And instead it is moving ahead with its controversial proposal to provide firearms training for school employees. My opinion on this is all these marches and using kids for political purposes is all very reminiscent of Nazi Germany. Tomorrow belongs to me, the Hitler Youth. You know, there's lots of people who are shot with guns. There's lots of people who around the world who have died because of the American military dropping bombs, Japan bombs, because they kill people. Japan cars, because they kill people every day. Where does it end? And how stupid are the parents of those children to allow them to be used as political pawns? To the parents of those teachers, you might as well put your brown shirt and boots on, because that's what you're playing out. The Hitler Youth, tomorrow belongs to me, right in your face. I mean, you can't get any more obvious. Kids are there to learn, not to be used as political footballs. You know, I've made my opinion quite clear on guns, and I do actually agree that I don't think guns should be made available to anyone under the age of 21. That's just my opinion. You know, different for me, coming from a country that is not immersed with guns, only the criminals. But I don't see the common sense of giving children and young adults access to guns. There's certain areas where it's kind of more common, where it's the rural because of the farming and whatnot, and I do get that. But I'm talking generalising here. I just don't think kids are responsible enough to be carrying lethal weapons around. In a better, more civilised world, we shouldn't be carrying any guns around. But sadly, we're not there yet. But I do think, as you get older, people make more balanced and responsible choices in general. And maybe that's the way forward with guns. It seems odd to me. You can buy a gun before you can vote or drink and use them. That really doesn't make sense. But I appreciate there's a lot of people in this country who have grown up with them. It's a way of life. And particularly the rural people, they're kind of different in a way. But people in the inner cities, there's really no need to be giving kids guns. It doesn't set a good example. Too easily hormones get the better of younger people, and they do like we all have ridiculous things at that age that we all regret now and wouldn't dream of repeating. But we really need to stop the youth having guns and deal with that side of the issue. So, but the main piece was parents have got to get clued in better of using their kids as political pawns. Hi all, and welcome back to the second portion of tonight's show, the intel portion. Yes, Operation Stupidity rolled out again, getting to be a kind of repeat narrative, but hashtag Operation Stupidity failed again on Monday. Now this was after the transfer out of the trust into the banks for $100 million. It sat there from last Thursday. The rogue elements had asked the banks to hold off on it until Monday, so they can deliver Operation Stupidity. Well, they didn't deliver anything, and still it sits there, because they're making threats on all the banks. They asked for another 48 hours, and Operation Stupidity was held over again until Wednesday. And guess what? It failed again. It's just getting beyond any comprehension whatsoever. But as each one fails, that's the RV, more and more is stepping down. So there is benefits to be gained, whilst it's delaying and holding many things up. There is benefits being gained from it, because every time they do it and every time they fail, from all accounts, they certain members of their own start taking their own people out because they failed, and then other ones are stepping out and coming and helping us. So every time they launch Operation Stupidity now, it has major consequences for them. Wednesday, there was frequent attempts, in fact, pretty much every day in the past week, but Wednesday in particular brought frequent attempts to hack the system, and all of those attempts failed again. Now, the $100 million that was in the account that's been now since last Thursday is for kickstarting various projects and funding requirements. Now, the military that are tied to the space program, like SS small p, and aligned with the Majestic 12 group, are still continuing to block all attempts to kickstart things. But their reign as the SSP, aligned with rogue off-world elements, is crashing around them. They're being denied all portal or gateway access, and none of the underground species want to work with them anymore. In fact, a few of them are now working against them. And this is why Trump announced a possible space force of our own this week. I played the last song, Bye Bye Babylon, for this next intel item, was the cabal's money system known as Babylon has collapsed. Babylon has fallen. Oh my. And that's not gone down too well. And the concern is we're kind of on red alert at the moment, because they're making all kinds of threats again. So far nothing has come to fruition, and the main threat was for today and tomorrow is to collapse the whole world banking system to prevent funds being released. It's a sign of their desperation to me. So today and tomorrow are crucial days in this ongoing war and process. After Friday, things may become a lot clearer. Time will tell. But I'd like everyone to spend a little time out of their day thinking of those who are in the firing line, please. It's not much fun at the moment, I'll tell you that for nothing. All connected to the Man of World Trust are under fire at the moment. This was kind of hinted at in the past couple of months, and is now being confirmed by the Chinese as of March the 11th this week, that the Chinese People's Congress voted to allow its president to have a no-term limit. And that was voted 2,958 to 2. Those two are Chinese elders. And President Xi is now staying in office to carry on the offensive against the rogue elements, and clowns are trying to install one of their own to alter the path. And that is why Xi is staying on, to complete the task. Now, should Mr. Trump, if he was nearing the end of his term currently, then the same would happen here also, as I understand it. This has to be completed with the people in place. Otherwise they'll bring in goons again. Now, the political shenanigans going on in the UK surrounding more bashing Russia rhetoric, this all stems from petulance. Why? Because of the oh my 5 and 6 groups are still aligned with the Rothschilds. Message for them: the net is closing. Around a lot of you. You have to fly straight or face the consequences. You're not going to get away with political chess piece manoeuvres anymore. It's checkmate. You've just forgotten. The political musical chairs in America will increase, not decrease. Now, if you think along the lines of appointment, the appointee gets highlighted, the appointee exposed, and appointee fired, you may see a pattern, and then you'll work it out. So that's the one more item. I forgot to add it to the page. Where are we? Let me pull it up now. As of today, Manor Wealth Holding Trust executed the high-speed train contract today. This was supposed to be done by the UN years ago, and they ignored it and stashed the funds. Well, now it's going to be implemented. This is a world high-speed train, bullet train. It's not the Hyperloop as has been put out. That's the rogue version. And this will go all around the world. It will increase trade. It will increase people's access to around the world. It will be environmentally friendly, and will also have a major impact on jobs. Good one as well. The spin-off from it is going to be enormous. So far 128 countries have accepted their funds for the high-speed rail, and we're still speaking to the rest of them, and it's still ongoing. So the way it was set up is that every country will get access to the funds for the rail, and that, like I said, is one of the 3 major projects that is going to be wheeled out by the trust and paid for out of the trust, and it's going to have a major impact on so many things. So that's the positive intel news today. With regards to the rest of the intel, there's whole heaps I can't put out at the moment. All I will say is things are progressing nicely and in time, I would say. I know everyone wants it done yesterday, myself included. We all want to move on to fix things, get started and get up and running, but these things have to be done correctly. We're only going to get one chance. It's not like the cabal where they can carry on year after year and just switch it around and swap it up. We're going to get one chance to get it right, and we're going to do it right. So thanks to Kim and the team for implementing that, and they'll now be able to release equal amounts to the private projects. But this training is going to make a massive impact I was shown it early on when I met Kim and the team of what was being planned and the cost of it, and it was rather cool. Of course, certain rogue elements got wind of it and trying to wield out another version that's not going to be environmentally friendly or have beneficial effects. So that's look forward to that. Right, let's get into some other items. Well, there was a big hoo-ha on the internet, and Q and Drake both promising mass arrest again. And again, they gave out dates. This time is March the 11th. Surprise, it's all happening, and many people's hopes were risen, and all hopes crushed yet again. Or so it seems. Now, this show did say I wasn't expecting things to take place at that time, and I know it's kind of not what you want to hear, but what you will get to hear on this show is what you need to hear, not what you want to. We call it as it is. But there was no evidence in that time frame supporting those events that were being pushed forward at that time. You know, to me, I think it's kind of silly, and also in a way irresponsible, to tell the cabal and rogue elements that we're coming to arrest you next week or even 2 weeks ahead of time. Why would you do that? You know, that's not how it works. You know, it'll all get done and be done and dusted, and you will all be told after the event, not before. That's how this is working, and that's how it really should work, and also how it will take place should the event arise. This is something I needed to get off, because I know a couple of members have been complaining, so I thought I will do another piece on it. But I hope you all enjoyed the show and got something out of it last Sunday. Kim and I were both on OYM, and we always have a good laugh on their show, and there's a lot of good chatter and questions and opinions from all four. And there were, like I say, a lot of interesting questions were also sent in by the members, and I think we answered them all in a way that most could get a grasp on. And the message that should be derived from the show, from all four of us, is what can we do going forward? How can we be of service? Where can we all use our skills? Each of us has their own different abilities, and all those abilities will be valid going forward. No one will get left behind. And the case is, a lot will be down to us, not people deciding for us. We're getting a chance to decide for ourselves. And it's up to us to formulate a new path. And we will require a massive mindset change by the majority. And that also includes those in the alternative media. Can't repeat the same pattern and expect something to change. So, yet again, in essence, we went on the OYM show and we were challenged with the questions, and we answered all the questions. Now, the sad thing is, if only all in the community would do that with their narrative, then we might get a lot less BS within our community. And in response to some members inquiring as to why we haven't been asked to go on more shows, Well, to me, that fact is telling. And it bears out what I said back in 2015, that there's not that many clean or non-co-opted people in the community. It's a sad fact that I personally, I wish I was wrong. But the fear of the elites, as I call them, the elites, that we the people waking up and seeing reality in a new light, there's too much for them to bear and risk. I just didn't think it was that deep. And so they have infiltrated heavily our community since 2011, 2012. Many people have just changed or been swapped. Changes in narrative. But to answer those that I did ask, yes, I find the lack of support for our show and the material has received in the alternative community. Personally, I find it staggering, but it's not surprising in many ways. But the announcement of the sovereignty was a major thing. It was a major scoop, not just for this show, but for the whole of the alternative community. It went on our forum platform before the mainstream media. But then people go, well, I'm waiting for it till it's not real until it's on the mainstream media, and yet we spent the last number of years stating and not believing a single word the mainstream media tells you. But it was a major thing for the alternative media and also the world at large, due to the snowball effect it will create, and has in many ways. And yet, whilst our show is often data mined and used elsewhere with little to no reference where it came from, then suddenly there's an announcement like that and it's not posted on hardly any sites in the alternative community, or any requests to do a show so that people can learn more about it or make their own choice and decide it's all BS. That's their choice. To me, it's all very odd and kind of staggering. Now, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've kind of shut down many of the alternative media game players. And sadly, it has left very few of us to go forward. But we can't carry on dragging liars with us. But the fact that so many have ignored our show and its content is damning in so many ways, it's hardly helpful, is it, if we're all going to go forward? And yes, I do get that people were sceptical at first. Well, here we go, here's another promising this and promising that. I do get that. And the people should be sceptical. It's fine to be that way. But if someone comes on 3 or 4 times and answers all the questions and you still can't make up your mind, something wrong with you, not me. But the proof has now been borne out many times. And this is despite the rogue attacks against us, all of which has failed. They've thrown everything to try and discredit it, and it's all failed. This is why they're getting pissy now, because they know it's going to work. One day soon, it's all going to collapse around them. But to date, only one show has bothered to contact myself or Kim to come on air and give people the facts. At the end of the day, what people do with those facts after the show is their choice. but just one show bothered to find out the details and ask their questions. Now, some people have just called it bullshit because they're too lazy, too stupid, or too ego unbalanced to look at the facts. If you think it's BS, fine, but please explain why you think it that way, or ask the questions. But is that how it's going to be going forward for us all? Just dismiss it because it's too good to be true. Not going to help, is it? Because if that's the way it's going to be, we'll be no better than the mainstream media or the cabal. You know, being part of a cabal COINTELPRO is one thing, like Jones. But worrying about whether one show, host or group will get more attention than theirs is a whole different ballgame. That's ego related. And I know that's one of the questions, so here's your answer. That mode of operation has never been conducive for the people to come together on an even keel, ever. I'm not supporting it because it's not my show, or I didn't get the intel, so I'm not reading it out. Really. It's kid stuff. So I want to thank the OYM lads for bringing us on, and also Starship Earth and Alistair for posting the updates on their sites. To me, the rest need to have a look at themselves closely and ponder whether their position or stance is a good one to go forward with. I would suggest it's not. And you won't get much time to change your mind either. So, how will the foundation go forward? How will the funding be done? Who gets the funding? All of that will be revealed once things are completed. I'd like to say we're close, but we've heard that, or it's soon, or it's imminent, but we've heard that too many times. But we're getting to a finite point. And like I said earlier, we'll do a show on how it all will unfold. And I'll make a video or an audio for the People's Club site outlining the details of funding and how to go about it. But as it stands now, I've received messages from investment banks in London, some other banking organisation in Canada, some asking about bonds, some asking about ZIMs, and some saying, well, if you run the funds through this country, it'll be safer. No, they control all the platforms. But if the platforms they control have zero left in it to control, then you've got no control of anything. And that's basically rather close. So then they have no option. They're tired of the people, even their own people, turning against them. Because now too many have seen the funds. They know it's there. So everything that we've said in the past, and Kim said, has been borne out by all of them, including the Rothschilds. And people are getting tired waiting for the Rothschilds to pay them, never mind fund them. They owed a lot of money from not being paid previous. Some of them don't have the patience we have. Decide to pull triggers here and there. I wouldn't like to be in their shoes. But the focus currently So I'd like people to not send in emails asking where I can get funding from just yet. We will clarify it all going forward, but the focus currently is getting things into place for safe release, plus dealing with psychopathic rogue elements who are hell-bent on the status quo currently. But here's a few things I'd like to see, and again something that we need to look at for ourselves, and for those around us. You know, for every millionaire that's created, tens of thousands are created to live in poverty or without. It's that metronome again, 99-1 or 90-10. That has to be brought back into balance. But is it really the way forward for us all? And if the goal is just to make money and then forget about the humanitarian, because some are there just to make money, but we have to do it in a better way. And would it not be better for all people on a reasonable pay with all basic needs met, rather than replicating the same system that they've given us, creating millionaires but then having tens of thousands who basically fund that millionaire? I've said this previous, what if everyone was earning $30,000 to $50,000 a year? Surely that's enough for most families to comfortably live on. Everything else is just excess, is it not? New cars, new phones, new handbags each year, all designed to just impress people in your own group and those around you. But the cost of impressing people is often too high for most of us. That's the key. It gets you on that wheel. And the main reason why most people are in debt is because they're paying the price of impressing people. Now, if we're going to do something different going forward, then the comparative consumeristic mindset, to me at least, has to be at the top of the list of don't do's going forward. You know, there's many examples of excesses. It's kind of making its way in the UK. I was reading about it, an article in the UK about graduation day, which was generally an American day, but it's catching on in the UK. Why? Because it's being consumerised. You know, lavish, expensive dresses and attires and hired limos, and some are even going as far as hiring helicopters. You know, as parents have basically played a game of outdoing each other, who can spend the most. But again, it's only impressing at a cost. And what they're basically doing is they're forgetting that they're setting the child up with an entitlement complex. That's not going to do well for the child going forward. Well, I always get the best. Well, what happens when you have to fend for yourself as an adult and you can't afford it? It's not good. Excesses around bank holidays, Christmas, is another one. Some people go too far, and there's others who can't afford anything to give the kids. How does that make those people feel? Well, in a comparative mindset, not good. And bank holidays play heavy on our budgets, and it's all down to marketing and strategy. In other words, corporate bullshittery. again, that's something I would like to see changed. The cost of impressing people, like I said, comes at a great cost to us all. People take vacations, less vacations now because of it. Must have this, must have that, and vacations are becoming non-existent for many people in America, at least. Oh, I haven't been on vacation for 12 years. Why? That's your downtime. And you wonder why we're all sick. But it just slowly creeps up on society, and people don't notice unless you take a step back. Oh my God. People taking less vacations has an impact on the health. People then cut back on things like better food, better health, or dental costs, just to keep hold of the materialistic impressing others scheme. For me, I'm looking at it in an overview, it's a ridiculous concept. And yet, all of us have at some stage bought into it. And I'm hoping going forward that we're going to be better than that. But I would like people to consider a few things before they ask for funding, an honest assessment of themselves. Is it for you to make a vast amount of money, or is it for you to make a reasonable wage doing something you always wanted to do, whilst helping others improve their lives? It's not a trick question. But if you have a start-up business funded by the trust, will you employ staff giving them a reasonable wage or a minimum wage? If it's the latter, are you not replicating their system? Can your business operate with a low profit margin and give some of the profits back to the People's Club to then help others? Again, it's not a prerequisite. It comes down to choice, and the choice is yours, not mine. What you've got to remember is the funding, in most cases, if not all, is for you free of charge. It's not a loan. So you've been helped by the trust and the foundation. Should it not be shared back in some way to then help others? But that's being different, isn't it? It's not how it works now. And this is the essence of thinking and acting different. Not everyone for themselves, but everyone helping and supporting each other. That is what I would like us all to do going forward. That's my vision for the future for the People's Club. Creating a legacy of real change, which all of us can accomplish with a simple change of mindset. That way we the people end the greed and the have and have not cycle. Would we not? We're going to have a quick music break, and I'm going to get a drink. I'm going to play this for Shane the Runer. Made a brave decision this week, and I stand by the man. Hi all and welcome back. I'm probably going to have a few more music breaks as I'm struggling tonight to clear my throat, but there you go. You can't be tips off every week. This next piece, I mentioned it last week, and it's another one to get you thinking caps on, and your scientist thinking caps on at that, something to ponder over. But it's something that came to me in various stages, and so I tried to take on the pieces of the puzzle and trying to see if I could make sense of it. And I can't guarantee it's correct. I want to make that quite clear. It is a theory, but I've tried to put various pieces of a puzzle together and then see if it makes sense. Now, one of the things that puzzled me is Chloe's doing what appears to be an encyclopedia now, a piece on energy centers, formerly known as the chakras. And she asked my help with small bits of it. And one of the things that kept coming up is there's various chakra, I will now call it energy centers, diagram systems all over the internet, and most of them, each energy center is aligned with the planets and the sun. They're just in different orders. And my observations were, how and why are all the planets all different on each diagram, or for each culture? Something's not right. Something doesn't fit. And one of the things that stuck out for me was placing the sun into one of the energy center positions. I didn't feel the sun belonged in that alignment. And that then is what throws everything off. And so off I went with some of my knowledge, some pondering, and an unexpected input from a piece I remembered from the dream time. So the gist of it is we have 7 energy centers, and the majority had the sun in on most of these diagrams placed at the heart center, and there was 3 planets stationed in the 3 energy points above, and 3 planets were placed below, but were all different planets. So I took the sun out. Why? Because I replaced the heart center with the planet that is an anagram of heart with the earth, which kind of makes sense, I thought. So the earth, if the energy centers are planet aligned, it makes sense that the anagram of heart is earth. And so then we were left with 3 planets above the heart energy system and 3 below. And then I had a flash of inspiration, which often comes to me when I'm pondering on these things, that these 6 planets, 3 above and 3 below, all had to be rocky, solid bodies to appear in the physical plane. Now, the 3 below I had no problem fitting in, as it was Mars, Tiamat and Selene. They were the original order. The latter 2 were destroyed in wars of the past, and the remnants of such are contained within the asteroid belt. Now, it's also been suggested, and some have memory of it, people in the alternative community also, that some of the organic souls here on Earth currently were refugees from Tiamat. There's that refugee term again, which why it makes it all sound that much more stupid when it's applied on this planet. Some were refugees to begin with. But then I ran into a problem with this theory and system, as there was only 2 planets, Mercury and Venus, above the Earth, the heart centre. And that's when another flash of inspiration came up. And I woke up one morning about around a month ago, I think, with the letters P, V and E. And like the GNA I mentioned in the Humanity Unplugged show. I couldn't really make sense of it. But whilst I was pondering on where the third rocky planet was, those three letters came into my head: P, V and E. The V and the E are Venus and Earth. So then I did some checking. Is there a planet that was in the past with the letter P? And I knew it couldn't be Pluto. So I looked up some of the ancient stuff and asked around, and found that the planet name going by Phaeton, Phaeton, and I checked to see whether this would then fit into this theory or not, and to my surprise it did. Now in mythology, Phaeton was hit by a brown dwarf known as Nemesis, which is all very interesting, and this kind of fits in with the other aspects of whether the moon is actually the outcome of that impact. Remember that the moon is far too large to be a natural moon. It's way bigger than anything else. So could the moon be Nibiru? Or could it be remnants of Phaeton? Or a mixture of both? They are the big questions. Either way, the moon was partially hollowed out by some groups in the past and parked into our orbit, or should I say trajectory. So with the three planets either side of the heart center, I now moved on to the next conundrum. If the sun is not the center of the solar system, or even if it is, how can you have a geocentric orbit for all the planets? You see, I'm not physics minded, but you'd always need two magnets to create the field and to create a spin. This is part of the free energy. It's two magnets creating the spin, the vortex. So you would need two magnets or magnetic fields to create the spin and keep the 7 planets in a rotating geocentric orbit. But currently we only have one, which is the sun. So I drew the diagram and placed the sun above the top 3 planets. But to create the spin, you would need the magnet below the bottom 3 planets also. And then, voila, the planet below the bottom 3 planets of Mars, Tiamat and Selene is Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is a so-called planet that even the mainstream science now admits doesn't orbit the sun. Think about that. The reason why is because in the distant past it was the sun. Again, this has been mentioned in mythology, but also even mainstream science now believe it's a failed star. And from all accounts, with certain technology, it could potentially be fired back up again. So now I thought I had the complete system. The Earth, heart center, 3 planets equaling the 3 energy centers above the heart, and 3 planets below representing below the heart energy center, 1 sun above and 1 sun below. A portal in and a portal out. Think about that. 1 sun was light and 1 sun is dark, aka the black hole sun. But this was the balance and the dance of the cosmos. The planet above Earth is Venus, also known as the light, and the planet below Earth is Mars, representing war and the dark. So it was all balanced out. But with Jupiter now not firing and creating the harmonic dance of balance with the Sun, the magnetic field has been broken. So the planets are not going in a geocentric orbit, but they are being pulled by the remaining magnetic field left, which is the Sun. Well, one magnet can't create that. What it does create is a heliocentric motion, which is now also being considered by mainstream science after NASA Harriman and some others mentioned it over a decade ago. The heliocentric motion is created by one magnet, which is the Sun, and so the Sun is then pulling all the planets behind it in a spiral, snake, rolling type motion. You can check out, there's some nice 3D graphics that probably explain it better. So this then explains when we have a planetary alignment, because if this is true, all your astrology fails. All of it. We may have had in the past a geocentric orbit, but clearly now we don't. The evidence supports it. Certain times there are 3 or 4 planets in a short space of the sky, and sometimes the mainstream media puts it out, oh, you'll be able to see Jupiter, Mars and Saturn all in a row. Except it's not in a row, is it? It would be in a row, a flat row, if we were on a flat geocentric plane. They would all appear to be in a straight line above the horizon. But they're not. For those of you who have seen the 3 or 4 stars in a row, it's in an arc. It's not a straight line. So this then again supports the heliocentric model further. Now the question remains, if this is all true, has the failed second Sun, was it done on purpose, and if so, why? And if it is given the Sun is pulling us into a new era, are we moving out of a certain space and time and into something that's more conducive to full organic life? Maybe it had to go down. The question remains, who will we meet along the way? And then the final piece of the puzzle is this model then explains if you put a fixed camera in position with a time exposure lens, we only view one spot and the night sky spirals around it. Because that then confirms the heliocentric movement. We're being pulled, not spun. So I hope people enjoyed that. Something to get you thinking a bit. Like I said, it's only a theory. I'm not stating it's 100% correct. It kinda makes sense with what's going on. But it will wreck astronomy. And it will certainly end the science known as astrology. Given you won't be able to do the geometric shapes and lineups based on a heliocentric model and not on the geocentric model. Right, let's get into some Q&A for the... There's a lot of them. Thought I covered all that last week. I'll leave that for a minute. questions on synths. I spent about half an hour doing the whole piece on that last week. I went into battle with my cable company last week, Southern Link. They have a monopoly in my area, and there are few choices. It's kind of the way here in America. You put up with them, or you put up with them. That's about it. This member wasn't getting any assistance and decided to call the corporate offices in St. Louis. But they don't dare answer the phone. You just punch numbers into your phone and you don't get to speak to a live person. Exactly. Maybe that's another addition I'm going to perhaps suggest to people who get funding via the People's Club. If you employ that annoying system, I'm going to cut the funding on you. There's nothing more annoying than speaking to a bot who doesn't understand a single word and is just there to mind fuck you, basically. I'm sorry, I don't understand. What part of F off do you not understand, and put me through to the operator? Please. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Smash. Anyway, this person found out that the company was purchased last year by Altis, a Netherlands corporation. All those dodgy Dutch people again. They're coming here with the East India Dutch tea company again. We have a lot of people from Holland, so I best behave. Question, will we ever get free Wi-Fi all over this country and the world? That's a possibility. There is things that are ongoing that I've hinted at. Maybe we'll get more details later. And question 2, will this country continue to allow foreign corporations to own our companies and services? Well, again, that's up to us. You know, if a vast amount of funds gets given out for these projects, it would be kind of ridiculous if America gets, for argument's sake, 100 billion for the train, the high-speed train, and then gives over half of it to companies in Britain or Mexico or Canada. You know, I'd hope that each country manufactures and builds from their own staff and their own companies, because each country will be funding their own, or get funding to do their own trains, and it'll all join up eventually. Maybe that's something that needs to be added in as part of the transfer of the funds. Please ensure that the manufacturing and the labour comes from people involved in the country that's providing it. Maybe that's a suggestion. As for allow foreign corporations, well, you know, it's a free trade world. There's nothing inherently wrong with having investment into the countries. A lot of countries rely on it. You know, some countries are more richer than others. You know, if suddenly, for argument's sake, a couple of the Japanese car industry decided to pull out, have we got enough of our own to replace it? A lot of people like those cars. So the key with the funding is you can create more American companies, or if you're in Britain, create more British companies without the need for foreign corporations, which may have different rules and different legislations and all that, the other nonsense, where they can get tax breaks that the companies in the country can't. Maybe we can create a People's Club brand that can sell all kinds. And we take over Amazon, only we're not creating robotic jobs, and we're not giving minimum wage. So you create it a better way, only in your image, not corporate image. So that's the task we all face going forward. The issue is not whether we should allow foreign corporations to come in. You can't stop them. But can we create something with the funds so that we don't really have to rely on them? Because currently we do. We've got no manufacturing. We have to create it again. So that's something for people to ponder on. In America, we have noticed chemtrails are back in the city skies in Phoenix, Arizona areas, but not much in rural areas. Is this a process to clear chemtrails, or same old business of harmful spraying in our skies? It depends on the region. I don't have access as to the counter spraying, or whether the certain elements are being sprayed to counter it or not at this point. I've seen certain evidence supporting that they're being blocked on many avenues. There's a lot of reports around the country saying chemtrails have stopped, or certainly drastically reduced over the past few months, which is encouraging. But until they're all gone, then we should continue to highlight it. Is there a flyer available, or may we make one introducing the Th&I, the People's Club, Think Different website to seniors and offline people who may not be aware of what's happening? We could do. There isn't one available. I know there was one of the members, Willow Niatsuma, I think her name. I think that's how you pronounce her second name. I know she was printing her own flyers off and driving around California and Arizona and up to Oregon and posting them to many people, making people aware. We're going to need to step up on that and get more people involved in it, more people donating $1 a week or $1 a month, whatever you can afford. You get 100,000 people putting $1 in a week, we can go far with that, even without the trust funds. I think the trust funds are fairly close, but we've been saying that for a long time now. Until it actually happens, then we wait. We're in the wait club. But we don't have to be in the wait club. Even if you get 10,000, putting $1 in a week, that's 43 grand a month. We can go far with that, with just that. Go far with 5 grand a month even. You can help people. So that's about us generating. It's not just about the trust. The trust will put funds in. We know that, but it's when. And the problem is, the funds are all there. There was funds going in the People's Club account a week last Monday, and the clowns blocked it. But we have taken some donations, and I've posted all the details of it on the page, all the financial figures. It's all fair and transparent. We have helped some people along the way, not as much as we would like, but I'm grateful for all the donations that people have put in. So we'll have a look. Maybe have to get a group together. I hope it goes better than the t-shirt print out process. Otherwise, that didn't go down too well. Next question. Are the Conservative government Rothschilds, or what? It sure feels like it, pretty much. They're also historically Nazi as well. Perhaps they should play Tomorrow Belongs to Me with them. Of course, there was a picture posted to yesterday of Theresa May sitting with Angela Hitler Merkel as a child. Go figure. Who'd have thunk it? What the Conservatives, even during the war, were hobnobbing with the SS. It's kind of like the Democrats, hobnobbing with KKK. Not that I'm saying Labour or the Republicans are any better, because they're not. The Labour guy you've got over there, Corbyn, is a member of the Fabian Society, the same as Tony Blair. Oops. Thomas, please name one question that Miss Manna Kim has refused to answer. Private ones, which is fair enough. If it's any of the stuff I've asked for proof, I've always been shown it. I've never been denied access to things I have requested. But, we've had, I asked a broad range of questions on the show last week that I think would cover most people's idea of what I would like to know. There may have been one or two that were missed out, none of them purposely. Like I said, we always ask the awkward questions as well, and then we went on OYM, and those questions we weren't aware of, they were all answered straight off the bat. Apparently one person asked, gave a wrong date, and so we didn't answer the question right, and he's not too happy. But apart from that, perhaps he needs to put the right date in the question to be able to answer the question correctly. But other than a private life, I would say not really, no. People have doubts then, and then people have doubts about themselves. That's the problem. Because if you can't ascertain after a number of shows whether people are valid or not, or you can't listen to the voice, you don't listen to the words, you listen to the voice. And if you decide she or me, for that matter, is not for you, then why listen to the show? Or listen to someone else. Simple as that. If an individual wants to work for the World Trust, where and how can he or she apply for the job? I'm not too sure the World Trust itself is going to be employing people, although that's a misnomer. What's going to happen is there'll be a lot of companies and foundations and project funding created by the World Trust, but not necessarily positions for the World Trust. There's only one position for the World Trust, and that's Kim. And maybe at a later date, depending on how busy things are, where jobs will be, specialised jobs will be created around Kim to support her. She can't handle dealing with 209 countries and thousands of projects all at once. So the jobs may have come available through that. But a lot of it is going to be through the various projects. There's 3 very major projects. The first one's been announced for train. There's 2 others. That's going to create a lot of positions for a lot of people. And it's up to you to get creative and come up with a plan. And if that plan proves to be valid, the funds are there, more chance than not it's going to be funded. So it's up to the people. What is your view of the event? Which event? Is that the series which I liked. Is it the Cobra event? I will then say again, which event? Is it ET disclosure? Is it the financial event? Is it the mass arrests? There's been a whole heap, and it's all been bundled into the event, except the event has already started. Just that too many didn't notice. Although our members did, because they've been shown stuff along the way. It's already started. I've said it before, we should all be dead now. If they had their way, we'd all be dead. So the event has already started. Just not the way that they wanted it to be. There will be a series of events. The announcement of the sovereignty is an event which has a massive snowball effect once it's implemented. And what's taking place now is the groundwork to get that implemented. It may take the rest of the year to sort everything out. There's a lot to sort out. If you don't think there's a lot to sort out, then you really haven't paid attention. You know, just look at the political shenanigans alone. And there's rumours now the Justice Department is going to get fired, all of them. So that then creates a new set of justices coming in, and new sets of ways and votes, and it never ends. And then there's been a vote that went on in Pennsylvania, was it, or Philadelphia, one or the other, this week, and there's been voting fraud again. Go figure. All kinds of people being bussed in to just vote. People with more than one social security number. It's scandalous. But it'll be exposed, and that'll create another issue, and then more violence. And hopefully towards the end of the year, or a lot sooner, we might see an actual government team in place, and not the corporation team that currently it is. OYM show, you're talking about global high speed rail train. Could you explain that? Well, I just did. I made the announcement earlier. That is enough for now, except to say that it will go right round the world, and it will be linked. Whether there may not be as much as they initially thought they would need, because there's an awful lot of high-speed rail below our feet already. That can be used without costing, so the costs can go into other things. We just imagine the impact. Less cars on the road, less carbon, less environmental impact. Yes, it will upset some places, but there's none worse than what's going on in cities at the moment, and the dust and smog. There's not many cities in America that suffers that, but you look at Moscow and Hong Kong, it's riddled with it. They're all walking around with masks. They can't carry on like that. So that will have a massive impact. And then suddenly you've got further down the line trains. Well, that's going to, at certain stations, that's going to need cafes. It's going to need ticketing. It may need park and ride. Maybe someone can set up that. And then it spins out. But it will have a massive impact. Suddenly you can travel. There's a lot of people who don't like flying. Well, suddenly if you can go on a bullet train between New York and California in a few hours. They reckon it's 3 hours or less. And it beats flying, doesn't it? Most times anyway. A lot of people just won't fly. So you imagine the economy when suddenly people they decide to take vacations again just by going riding the train around the country. So it will have a massive impact, a far-reaching impact, because suddenly everything is going to be connected, and there'll be things that are added into it along the way that will make a massive change. Are highly sensitive people already born with a higher vibration and prepare themselves to ascend to the higher dimensions of the new earth, and are they the ones who will ascend first? If so, can you confirm this is true? There were some that came in with the higher vibration. I'm not too sure there was many here with that vibration, otherwise they wouldn't have been here. I think Chloe's going to cover this, so I'm not going to go into too deep. There was a blocking of the higher energies below the heart center. So how can you evolve higher vibration when you've got a permanent block on most of the planet? You can't. And so those with the higher vibration that came in to help were the ones that were preparing as many as possible for a transfer. But there's no guarantee the ones that came in to help are going to be the ones to go to the new earth first. Nobody knows who's going first. Nobody, and I'll repeat, nobody knows. It may be all the higher vibration ones have to stay behind to put out the resonance to help the current ones here. So none of it is, to my knowledge anyway, has been confirmed yet as to who is going and who is not. But the majority of the population have not reached a higher vibration. Just haven't. Seeing as Kim has talked to all the countries, do you think that the British government are just out to make as much money for themselves and banker friends before they switch over? It's not the British government. I know the tendency is to blame the government. They're just the front that takes the abuse. It's the clowns behind that people need to focus on. British government largely has no say in the matter, no more than the American government has. But the simple reason is they're not government. They're corporations for profit. So yes, they're going to make money for themselves and the corporation. Well, you don't work for the corporation, so you don't make any money. That's how it works with them clowns. But there is elements of change within the UK, within GCHQ, within some of the Oh My 5 and 6 groups, and also in the House of Lords. Maybe one day all of them will have a McFly moment and see sense. Do you think it's a good idea to make all utilities, communication facilities and transport free and the suppliers get paid so that there will be not any unemployment, and then retrain all the workers in these industries for the new tech rather than paying people directly? It might work. You know, it's good that people are thinking. It doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not. The idea is for all of us to come up with ideas and go with the best ones. But one thing I will say is things that are basic needs, like the utilities and food, and even in this day and age, you have to say communication has become a main part of basic needs. And those things should not have shareholders and for-profit companies, in my opinion. All or any profits should either go back into making improvements into the system or be given back to the people who have paid it. The idea of having shareholders for electric or gas or power, energy, should be a no-no going forward. The idea of having people making money off, or excess shareholder type money off food, should be a no-no going forward, in my opinion. Not people just sitting there pushing pens and playing footsie with the secretary and walking away with half a million to 4 million in executive fees. What for? Not done anything. Well, we're paying for that, for those fees, when that money should all go back into the company and then given back to the consumer by the following year. If there's an excess of money over and above collected in, then you reduce the rate, the cost of the energy, until it balances out. That's the way I would see it. I think we're a fair bit away of, to answer the question, of getting those things for free, because that would impact an awful lot of work. I'm not so sure there's sufficient to phase in that will cover that loss. And this is where things will take time. From the transition from one way to another, like the high-speed rail, it's not going to be built overnight, but it can be started fairly quickly, and will create a massive amount of jobs and potentially set up a lot of people for employment with the spin-offs from the rail. So that will have to be phased in, and as that's phased in, less and less people are going to buy cars. So there's the spin-off with the employment. Suddenly people have gone into retail, for argument's sake, retail around the railway stations, as long as it's not all done by one company and corporatised again. It should be perhaps a condition, maybe it's something I'll mention to Kim, that the stations are not all owned by one company, like Amazon or Walmart. It should be open and available to all, because it is going to involve you. But yes, we're going to need more people for the new tech, so there is some balance in that. Maybe we have to look into lowering the retirement age whilst increasing the pension. No, sheep is not part of the Draco. Kim suggested going through create change to create projects for helping humanity. Create change is linked to the Th&I conversation. If the Th&I stuff is a scam, how is tank and create change legitimate? You obviously haven't been following the show too closely, because we've only been saying since December that Kim has been working, at least December anyway, probably sooner, with the RV people and educating them. Now, Tank is one of the RV people, and he's now seen through the illusion and is educating other clowns in the Th&Is to step down. So that's create change. Tank, or Stefan, his name is has that company Create Change that's been there for allegedly when the RV was supposed to take place, according to them, 2 years ago. And yes, there was some sort of business conference that was supposed to take place, but as you all know now, Operation Stupidity failed. So Tank and his RV people have been waiting a long time for the illusion to take place, and now he's spoken to Kim and he's fully on board with wanting to change. Instead of Dinar's paying her out, the trust's going to pay her out and put it into projects. I don't know whether a 2018 convention for the Create Change will take place. I've not spoken to the guy yet. But is this or is this not a Th&I scam? It's nothing to do with Th&Is. It was originally set up that way, but now he's working or is in contact with Kim. The Create Change, what is that for? It doesn't look inviting. Again, that was part of the Th&I, whether they're going to look at that website again. They may even close that down and rejig and do a whole new one. Like I say, I don't know what Tank's plans are going forward. Maybe we'll get him on the show one day. Are there plans in place to implement a fair benefit system in the UK and globally? Not to my knowledge as yet, but I do think we will get to a point where there will be perhaps too many people and not enough work going forward, and so some sort of system has to be put in place for the future. For all the elderly and disabled people. I think there's far too many people who are playing the system. The system's been set up for them to play the system, but there's far too many who are given their power and away to the system by thinking it's better to stay on benefits than not work. Not for your own well-being, it's not. It might have less beneficial financial effects, but it's not helping you grow. It's not helping you be part of the community. I know there's a culture of it in the UK, and particularly where I was born. You know, there's a lot of the British economy going back 15-20 years was based on what is known as the black economy, where the taxes that were applied to businesses made it too expensive to employ people. So then employees were taking employers on and paying them minimum wage or low wage, cash in hand, to get around the system, and the people working and also claiming benefits to top up their pay. Do I think that was wrong? Not really, no. If you want to create a system where it's too costly for people to employ people, then you can't cry at the other end if people need to live. Because people think you can get by on minimum wage. You can't. That's why we have so many people in the Western world now living below the poverty line. There's 1 in 6 kids in America, richest country in the world and all that. 1 in 6 kids living below the poverty line in America alone. That's deliberate. And yet you've got people in the UK telltale people who on benefits and working. They do that because the wages are too low. Because the system pushes people into being on benefits because they can control you better. That's why it's rampant. That's why there's 146 million Americans on benefits. That's what they want. Then they control you. Eventually, what they were heading for is they won't give you cash, they'll give you a card. And what happens if that then goes digital? And they decide, well, we don't like that person because he's questioning our fascist government ideology. Delete your account. They've already told the American people the Social Security is a benefit. Actually, it's an entitlement because you've already paid for it. In fact, it's already been paid for by the trust before that. But you've also made more contributions to it. So there's a lot of things going to have to be rejigged. Maybe what I mentioned earlier is retire people earlier, because they're the ones that have paid the tax. Largely in this country was bogus, and give them an increased pension, and let's get the youth working. There's too many. You'll know, John, in the UK and up in Scotland, there's far too many of the youth just can't be bothered working. That has to change. That then creates the next generation of non-workers, and the next generation, that's why you've got families in the UK. 5 generations of people who have never had a job, ever. There was a programme on TV about it. 5 generations. The whole family. Not one of them had a job. They were all on benefits because they made more money. But it's damaging to the people, because work gives you a sense of pride, a sense of achievement, a sense of attaining a goal. And yes, most of us are not in jobs we particularly like. But the fact that we won't change it because, I can't be bothered. I'm just going to moan all week about, I hate this job, and counting your hours down till Friday. Everyone does that in the UK. It's Monday, only 4 more sleeps, and then it's the weekend. Just wishing your whole life away. Or it's Wednesday, we're over halfway there now, so 2, and then it comes to Saturday and you go to the match or you go shopping, and then it's Sunday again and everyone's depressed because they're going back to work the following day, and it's just a repeat cycle. We have to stop that, and I'm hoping with the funding that people will come up with good ideas that's going to benefit not just them but the people around them, where they're going to it becomes not a job, but a hobby. A hobby to earn money helping others. It don't get no better than that. So maybe look forward, maybe some people want to work 7 days a week doing that. And forget it's Monday. If you're enjoying your job, the days don't matter. Have you heard of a weapon called railgun or rods of God? Yes, briefly. I don't know a vast amount about them, except they operate on kinetic energy. I think Some of the cabal are getting kinetic energy at the moment. A lot of variable kinetic energy anyway. And a few hammers of God on this show, at least anyway. Alright, I think I've covered all the questions. Or have I? Oh no, the synth one. If 70 to 90% of the people on Earth are synthetic due to the majority of newborns have an artificial soul, it's possible. Who or what is generating these artificial souls? Well, certain ones are capable of loosening them. Go and watch the series Once Upon a Time. It explains the loops, it explains reincarnation, and it also talks about soul vampirism. On 1st of February, in the question and answer section, you said the synths are controlled by AI. Who or what is controlling the AI, and from where from? The AI just is. It's all like a construct. Now, in essence, yes, they're being controlled by the AI. It's bio-robotic. That's what a synth is. It's not completely human. It is human, but it hasn't got the soul element. So a machine thinks for it. I think what we've got at the very least is a lot of people, whether they're synths or not, as I have said, it's not 100% proven. The evidence supports it. But you look at the people, do they think for themselves? Or do they all think en masse? Robotic. Do they all look at a machine on the hand all day? All very robotic. Repeat, 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 repeat. What would happen to the synths if this AI system is deactivated? It already has. But they run a program. In the future, once most of the organic souls have left this planet, would there be any point to synthetic people? If we move to a different space-time, synthetic people can't exist. If the G-matter returns in its full glory, synthetic people can't exist. For more details on that, go and listen to the Humanity Unplugged shows 1 and 2. It's all very detailed of how that works, how they are created, the synthetic and the organic. But if the G-matter, which is returns in its full form, then the synthetics cannot exist. If we move in a heliocentric orbit into a different space-time that is only conducive to organic, then synthetic people will cease to exist. Hope that answers your questions. I don't want to end on that one. One more. Li-Fi using LED bulbs. You're going to hear a lot of different things. There's going to be benefits and pros and cons. But the issue, from my limited knowledge, I will admit I haven't read up on it, is Li-Fi doesn't travel through walls like current Wi-Fi. And so to operate Li-Fi, you have to have the light on. Otherwise, if you turn the light off, it goes off. So I'm not too sure how that's going to be overcome. You're going to sit with the light on all day to use the internet or play games or whatever on the computer, or operate your phone. It's going to cost you a lot more money. It's hardly beneficial unless there's another way to overcome it. But that's my understanding of Li-Fi, L-I-F-I. Maybe we'll all one day get telepathy back, although that'll be a shit show in itself. What, you don't like me? And you'd have to tell the real truth then about what you really think about people. Oh dear, that would create quite a storm. Right, I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. A summary, it's all very crazy train out there. Why? Because the cabal are losing, and they're losing badly, and they're kind of in desperation mode now with their banning this and blocking that, encouraging this kids to be political pawns like the Hitler Youth. They're all signs of a failing regime. They will fail one day, and we're all hoping is that one day will be rather soon, and we're working towards that in a rather nice progressive way, and we'll keep you updated as the things are going on when it's safe to do so, and get ready. That's all I can say. But remember the people who are in the front line, because it's rather scary out there at the moment. The threats have increased dramatically, and it's not just on the team either. They're threatening banks, blowing up banks, and blowing up this place, and crashing this and crashing. And a failed regime. Right, I'll be back on Sunday with Glenn Connon on An Evening with Thomas, around 4:30 Sunday afternoon. That should be an interesting show. And if you have any big announcements, we need to do a special show. It will be announced on the MeWe page or on the Facebook page. And I'm going to leave you with an old piece, a reminder what I used to read out, but I stopped after a while. But I'm going to remind you all again. If you lead life in love and care, you will prevail. If you lead life in fear and anger, you will fail. Feel free for you to be the person you wish to be, not the person who conforms to what others want them to be. You are a multi-dimensional being operating simultaneously on many levels. You are not here to conform. You are not here to be stifled. You are not here to be enslaved. And you are not here to be abused or to compete with your friends, family or neighbours. You are here to be the best you can be and do so as a crown of creation. Now go out with the confidence of who and what you are and excel in yourself, and in doing so inspire others. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Bye for now.